find something lady. Come around up, call you baby. Get yourself to the butterfly lounge, find yourself a big lady. Big boy, come around up, call you baby. Since what's my basis? Where in the hole the girls around, girls in all the right places. Big girl, you are beautiful. Meow. Hello, 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 hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was just like kind of laughing at myself because if I'm like, if you guys ever watch these videos that I post on YouTube, there's like oftentimes like a minute before I let you guys in where it's already recording and it's just me like singing to myself in silly voices. I never really thought about it before today. Julius, I don't know what happened to my hand, if I'm perfectly honest. I left Target the other day and I felt fine. And then halfway home, I was like, what's my hand like stinging? And there was like a big chunk of flesh taken out of it. And I don't know what did it. I don't know. It was a big shopping trip. I got a lot of stuff from Target. I love Target too. That survey that I was taking during class yesterday gave me $15 on a gift card, and I got to pick where it was going to be to, and I picked Target. It was between Target and Starbucks, but I went for Target because I'm always going to spend more money at Target for sure. I have a wasp in here, and it's really alarming me. It hasn't been doing anything, but I'm afraid of it. I'm sure Madison is not home yet because it might be Miss Cathan's wasp. I don't know. I do have the windows open, to be fair. Also, LeBron was just here and he walked in my classroom and was like, this classroom is sad. And I was like, excuse me, what? He was like, there's just so much like white space on the walls and stuff. And I was like, dude, I've tried to make it cozy, like my back corner. He was like, no, I like the back corner. I was like, I have curtains in here. No one else has curtains. He was like, yeah, it's okay. But like, there's so much white and there's this random red wall. And then you've got like blue on one wall and yellow, like just stick with a theme. I was like, what? I'm trying to make it nice. We're not allowed to paint. Like he knows interior design. I know. It's ridiculous. He just came and like took a bunch of donuts from me and insulted my room and left. Rude. Okay, so we shouldn't actually need to be here for too long today because I think I actually read one of the things yesterday that I intended to read today. But we are going to go over a couple of things pretty quickly. Oh, I didn't do attendance. I was going to say, Madison has already been marked absent because she was taking the SAT and she just left a few minutes ago. I saw her on her way out. So she's probably just not home. Okay. First thing we're going to look at is introductory paragraphs. Gino. Oh, yeah. His pictures. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. He had a lot taken and they were actually all really, really good. Like some of them are funny, but the pictures are very good. Introductory paragraph. Okay, well, we didn't mean to scroll through all of that. Hi, Mike. The introductory paragraph of the essay forms a very specific and obvious function. Introduces your subject and your argument to your reader. In doing so, it provides the context for the discussion to follow and lays out a blueprint structure for readers to follow and evaluate, aka kind of just tells you what the essay is going to be about. An effective introduction with a capital I will go a long way towards establishing both the reader's interest in your analysis and the reader's faith in your credibility as a writer. An ineffective, vague, or poorly phrased introduction will do the opposite. And we all know by this point, intros and conclusions are usually the toughest thing, but most of y'all have gotten pretty good at them. I hate these graphics. An introductory paragraph for an analytical essay, which is what you're writing, usually contains some elements that readers have come to expect. You should work to fulfill these expectations by including these elements in your own essay. These elements include an engaging opening, like a hook, a description of your subject, and a very specific statement, aka thesis, about your central point or argument in the essay. So you need an attention getter, a brief summary, and a very precise thesis. So these are some guidelines to kind of follow for the literary analysis essay. You should identify the author and title, the title of the work that you're analyzing, even if you already say that in your title. And we sort of talked about that yesterday. Like your title should be something like, the wasp is moving. That shouldn't be your title. I'm just afraid. Nervous. Your title should be something like The Devil as Arnold Friend in Joyce Carol Oates's Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? But then once you start writing, you should include in Joyce Carol Oates's short story, Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? Blah, 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 blah. You'll just kind of pretend like your title doesn't exist. You want to make sure you give the writer's full name the first time you identify him or her. Like you'd say Joyce Carol Oates in the first sentence, and then from there on out, you would just refer to her as Oates. Provide a brief summary of the work, usually about 3 to 6 sentences in length. I would even say 6 sentences is pretty long. You can assume that the reader has read the work since we're reading an essay on it, but you still need to provide the summary in order to establish both the events of the story and set the context for your discussion. Plus, it helps to prove you know what you're talking about, or it completely ruins your credibility if you get facts wrong. And then in the intro with your thesis, which can be more than one sentence if you need it to be. So small. While trying to get the reader's attention is an important goal in the opening of the essay, be sure not to do so at the expense of your credibility. I feel like this is stuff I talk about in my top 10 essay mistakes to avoid. One of my favorite examples of someone missing the mark in this regard is a student who opened an essay on gun control with the sentences, "Sex. Gun control is an important issue in the country today." While certainly engaging, the opening makes no sense. It doesn't. Like, what on earth? And the student, I mean, it always gets your attention, right?
What kind of beginning?
I know. And he's like, that's exactly what he said, Julius, when he was asked about it, and he said he was trying to get the reader's attention, and it did. I mean, that is an office quote. He certainly did, but not in the way he wanted. Instead, he might have opened with an anecdote about a shooting. Yeah, like it might not have been a super, I don't know that it would have been as lively as starting with sex, but you know, it's more relevant for sure. Getting the reader's attention at the beginning of the essay is an important but often difficult task when writing an analysis of a literary work. Addressing social issues often offers more leeway than literary analysis, since you can open with stories, as an example. You can't really do that in a literary analysis. When writing about a literary work, however, you can still garner the reader's interest by being factually accurate and assertive in the opening. Pay attention, because it can be difficult to come up with a good hook for a literary analysis. Don't begin with just an obvious statement, like Arthur Miller wrote the play Death of a Salesman. Like, he did, but that doesn't make me want to keep reading. That's just a fact. It's kind of dull. And instead, you could open an essay by moving directly into your topic, like starting by saying, in his play Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller depicts his protagonist Willie Loman's attempts to become the man he never was and can never be. It's pretty good. You're immediately identifying the author, the title, and the general focus of your paper. So that's a pretty good sample sentence. If you want to ever like go back and see an example, you can maybe model yours on. You could also begin with some general comments on the specific issue that you're going to discuss. If we're still talking about the same essay about Death of a Salesman, you could start, when people confront their own false beliefs about themselves, they can achieve a healthy new self-awareness or fall further into destructive illusions. These opposite reactions characterize Biff and Willie Loman, the main characters in Arthur Miller's classic play, Death of a Salesman. I hope that the fact that y'all probably haven't read Death of a Salesman is not taking too much away from this. It's really formatting and like the content, or like what kinds of sentences you're writing. That's the important thing, not that you totally understand what this essay would be about. Although you should read Death of a Salesman. It's very good. And there's a movie starring Dustin Hoffman that was very good. If you do decide to do that, you need to make sure not to begin too generally or with a cliche. Like you wouldn't, oh, I hate this. For instance, you would not open with an overly broad statement like, throughout history, people have believed many things about themselves. Like, yeah, of course they have. It's the most broad, vague statement you could make. We need to focus in a little bit. Also, openings like many people have illusions or the truth can hurt prove too vague and cliched to be effective. Try to be a little bit more specific than that. Finally, a technique that some writers use when analyzing a literary work is to open by quoting a line from the work. That can be very effective. It can be tricky to pull off. You need to choose a quote that's important but not too important. Like you want to save the ones that are really good evidence for your body paragraphs. But you need to introduce it well and transition between the quote and your point in using it. So here's a bad example. If you began with, "Pop, I'm a dime a dozen and so are you." Cite it. "Biff wants Willie to believe what he believes." The reader's reaction might be, huh? The reason for this confusion is because a person has chosen a good quotation but has not transitioned out of it well. Also, like, at that point, we don't know what it's from. We don't have any background information. Like, we don't know anything. It feels really random. A better use of that quote would be, Pop, I'm a dime a dozen, and so are you, declares a distraught Biff Loman to his father, Willie, in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, as he tries to get Willie to confront the truth that neither he nor Biff will ever be important men. This statement clearly specifies why the writer is using the quotation, and while a bit wordy, it opens the essay on a strong note. I think this is actually a really good presentation. It's got some good suggestions and good examples. So when you write a summary, you should provide a brief summary of the work you're analyzing. Remember, they said 3 to 6 sentences of summary. I think 6 is a little much. You don't want to spend the entire intro just recapping what you've read. But it helps to establish the context of your discussion, remind viewers of key events in the work, show that you understand those events, and provide an effective transition between statements of fact to your argument. The key to providing effective summary is balance. You don't want to go into so much detail that you end up retelling the entire work. That's why I'm kind of saying I feel like 6 sentences is even a little long. You don't want to spend all your time retelling the whole thing. But you want to give enough information. So selection of details is very important. I'm not going to read the rest of that about Death of a Salesman. Then when you move to your thesis, that's by far the most important element of the introductory paragraph, because without a good thesis, the essay doesn't really have a purpose, or at least we don't know what the purpose is. You want to make sure that it's as precise as you can make it. Don't worry about spoiling the essay for the reader by providing too detailed of a thesis. The reader wants specificity so that they understand and can evaluate your argument. And again, the thesis is the blueprint of the essay, so you should specify your central body paragraph focuses in the order in which they appear. So like if you're listing 3 things, like we all kind of know the 3-part thesis structure. If you're listing 3 things, the first thing you list should be your first paragraph. The second thing you list should be your second paragraph. And you need to clearly articulate your point in the essay. Okay. Let's go on to thesis statement. Subtitle. I was going to say this looks nice, but then it's got this random subtitle. I don't like that. Can I change it? Ridiculous. Okay. So your thesis statement is a clear, specific articulation of your central argument in your essay. It specifies both your subject and your argument about this subject. So it must contain an arguable statement, not just a statement of fact. It isn't a thesis statement to say Arnold Friend is the antagonist in Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? It would be more of a thesis statement. It takes too long to like think of a good thesis statement, but a statement about how Oates uses the character of Arnold Friend to suggest that Connie is coming to an aid. This is so bad. I can't just come up with one off the top of my head. Something about her like moving into adulthood. It's not good, but hopefully you get what I mean. In an essay that analyzes a literary work, the writer tries to persuade readers that his or her main ideas about a literary work are valid, which is one reason that you don't want to say, I think that Oates uses Arnold Friend as this kind of character. You want to state it as fact because we want it to seem as valid as possible. The thesis details those main ideas about the literary work. Also, since the work is the topic of the paper, in order to be as specific as possible, you should list the full name of the author and the full title of the work within the thesis statement. Let me just correct that a little bit. If you have introduced the work, the title of the work and the author in the first sentence of your intro, you don't really need to say it all again in the thesis. I think that's fine. And we've already said those things, location and length. Okay, what a thesis statement cannot contain. Cannot contain a statement of fact without an argument. Their example here, I think all of their examples are from Death of a Salesman, which kind of makes me wish we'd read Death of a Salesman, but we didn't. In Death of a Salesman, Willie Loman commits suicide in order to make sure that Biff inherits a large sum of insurance money. That happens. That actually happens in the book. There's no two ways about it. It's just a fact. You're not really arguing anything. The thesis is not just going to be a summary of a literary work. You should have a summary in your intro, but not your thesis. You can't refer to yourself in the thesis. I believe that Willie loves Biff, but I also believe we don't care. It's not that we don't care, but who are you? Like, why do we care about your opinion? Just say it. Just say it as fact. You cannot refer to your reader in the thesis. As you see from Miller's depiction of Willie, just say, like, it's obvious from Miller's depiction of Willie that he is a father who loves his son, etc., etc. You can't refer directly to your essay in the thesis. That should go without saying. In the following essay, I hate it. No cliches or platitudes in the thesis. With the exception, I would say, if you're arguing that something is the theme of a work, your theme might be kind of a cliche or a platitude, and I think it's okay. The thesis cannot assert that the essay will have an argument. It must specify the argument. Like something that says, after reading this essay, you'll come to realize that, don't do that. And the thesis cannot be a question. That should go without saying, but you can pose a question in the beginning, elsewhere in the intro, but that's not going to be your thesis because a question can't be an argument. So if we're looking at the development of a solid thesis, a very weak thesis would be Willie's attitudes towards his sons hurt their relationship. Like, you can see that there's an argument in there, but it's just not fleshed out. It's not very specific. You can do a lot better. So if we want to improve that a little bit, flesh it out a little bit more, Willie's attempts to get Biff and Happy, who is his other son, to fulfill his own dreams hurt their relationship and the son's individual development. Better. Let's kick it up another notch. Willie's attempts to make Biff and Happy fulfill his own dreams force his sons to adopt values contrary to their natural abilities, which undercut their relationship with their father and stunt the sons' individual developments. That's actually fine. That's a solid thesis. A very strong thesis. As Arthur Miller shows throughout The Death of a Salesman, Willie's efforts to make Biff and Happy fulfill his own misguided dreams forces his sons to adopt values contrary to their natural abilities. As a result, Willie undercuts his relationship with his sons and stunts their individual developments, turning Happy into a selfish liar and Biff into a lost, disillusioned man. Very specific. I think that really could be 2 sentences because it's quite long. But that's got everything a thesis really needs. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. Do you have any questions about intros or thesis statements or anything else? Nope. Okay. Well, tomorrow we'll go over topic sentences and body paragraphs and conclusions. And then Friday we'll do some MLA stuff. But that's it for today. Very short class. I will see you guys tomorrow.